Good afternoon, and welcome to the third edition of The Exchange, a marketplace of student ideas. I'm Steve Frank. I'm the Vice President for Education and Exhibits here at the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia, a museum and a center for civic education. Today's program, Setting the Student Agenda for 2008, is the result of months of hard work and planning, and it brings together students from across Pennsylvania and as far away as Louisiana and Georgia. That we're able to communicate instantaneously over such great distances would have amazed the men who wrote the Constitution 200 years ago, just a few blocks from here. That young people were gathering to weigh in on the important issues of the days probably would have had them scratching their wigs as well. But what wouldn't have surprised them is the fact that citizens were gathering to deliberate the difficult issues that face the nation today. That's what they did themselves in 1787, and that's what we've been doing ever since, thanks to the government of we the people that they established. It's particularly exciting to be deliberating these issues in a presidential election year. And before we get to that, I just want to say a few words of thanks. First, to Eli Lesser, Lauren Christella, and Andrew McGinley, who created the curriculum on which today's program is based and organized it as well. To the Annenberg Foundation, whose generous contributions make this program possible. To Scholastic Publishing, whose partnership will help extend the Exchange's reach, I believe, to virtually every classroom in the country. And a special welcome to Karen Schreier and Lynn Land. Finally, also to the students in this room and to those of you connected over the internet for accepting not just the Constitution Center's invitation to be here this afternoon, but the invitation of the Constitution itself to be active citizens, not just today, but every day. And to your teachers as well, who've inspired you and prepared you to do just that. Finally, I'd like to thank and welcome back Suchin Pat for hosting her third exchange. As many of you know, Suchin is an MTV News correspondent. She's also the host of a news show on the Discovery Channel's Planet Green network. It's a pleasure to turn the program over to Suchin, who will also introduce a special guest.
That's right. Thank you so much, Steve. All right, hi guys. First, I just wanted to quickly, I think you already know, but make sure that your microphones are on mute when you're not talking, and then unmute them when you do want to talk. Thank you so much. You know, this is the National Constitution Center. We are live from Philadelphia, as well as all these other fantastic cities that we're going to get to know across the country. And like we mentioned before, this is our third meeting here at the Exchange, a marketplace for student ideas. And this isn't really a debate. What it is a discussion. There are no winners or losers. It's not a competition. There's no trophy at the end. Well, I guess we could work on the trophy prize if we wanted to. But really, at the end of the day, what we're here to do is talk about issues and to really get an idea of what students across the country are feeling about them. You know, we've talked about school safety and violence. I came out here just a couple of weeks after the Virginia Tech story, and that was a really interesting conversation that we had. We talked about religion in schools, and again, all within the context of political participation and the constitutional rights and individual rights, which is not as clear-cut as the piece of paper would suggest. And today we're going to do things a little differently. It's sort of a board meeting, it feels like. And I'd like to think that we're all sort of almost representatives of probably every student across the country. I think that each one of us probably has the voice of thousands, I'd like to think. So this is a big responsibility for us. And today, as we're sort of preparing this year for the big presidential election coming up, we're going to actually come up with an agenda. We are going to decide right here in this room the 5 most important issues that face America's students out in the country today. And, candidates, they're taking positions on war, on mortgage reform, on lobby reform, but do we feel, addressing young people and students? And I think that the answer probably is not enough, not at all, not often. So we're going to do all the work for them. And today we have 13 schools participating from all over the country. 6 are represented right here. Thank you guys for coming. And 7 of you guys are patching in, and like we said, everywhere from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, to Freesburg, New York. And by the end of our time here, again, we're going to come up with a list of the top 5 most important issues that affect young people during this presidential election and in the years to come. And now all the schools have joined us through our fantastic social network, because we all have to have one one of those. Studentexchange.ning.com. If you don't have a profile on there already, or your friends don't, then I suggest you get emailing. And you guys have all been provided with a curriculum, so we're all prepared to talk about these issues. And of course, we have an expert, thank goodness, because I certainly don't have the answers to all of you guys' questions. Dr. Michael Hogan is joining us from the Center for Democratic Deliberation at Penn State University. Thank you so much, Dr. Hogan. I'm going to scooch next to you.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's a thrill to be here and to be here with young people. This really is a historic moment. This particular election is arguably the first one where young people can really make a big difference. You know, it wasn't that long ago that the Constitution was amended to allow 18-year-olds, 18 to 21-year-olds to vote. And disappointingly, for many years, there was a steady decline in the number of young people that voted after 1972, the first election they were able to vote in. And it's only been in the last two election cycles, 2004 and the midterm elections of 2006, that there's been an increase in young people voting. And in fact, registration in 2004 among young people in some states was up as much as 18, 19%. And so far in the primaries this season, there's been an astounding turnout, the highest ever seen. The turnout in the Iowa caucuses and in the South Carolina primaries, for example, tripled over the figures for young people just 4 years earlier, and it quadrupled in the state of Arkansas during the primary. So this is an exciting time. Now people, you know, the candidates, John McCain just issued a statement in his campaign the other day that he's going to go after every young person's vote as vigorously as, of course, as Obama has. And,
they all
and
have
Obama's
MySpace pages.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so there, you know, you guys count this year like never before. So that's an important first point to make. And hopefully that will continue, and all of you will be very much engaged in this campaign. Now, what I do bring to this, I'm not an expert on all the issues. If you start asking me, you know, about the details of Hillary Clinton's health care plan, I'm going to be in trouble. But I do come from a center at Penn State where we talk about what it means to deliberate, and that is important. You've heard the term debate. Some of you may have a kind of negative view of that term because what you see on TV sometimes, you know, the talk shows on TV where they yell at each other and they try to score points, and you know, debate doesn't sound like a very productive activity. So what we're here to do is not necessarily debate, but to deliberate, and by that I mean engage with your fellow citizens, and you are all citizens, about what the important issues are. And again, the good news is the candidates are listening this time. You know, the candidates, if you asked them a few years ago, why don't you talk to young people, they say because young people don't vote. All right, and young people are voting now, and the candidates are listening, and they want to talk to you. But first, you have to tell them what you want to hear.
And that's what we're going to do today. So let's meet all the students. Thank you so much for joining us, by the way. So
thank you.
We promise we won't ask about health care in Hillary's campaign. All right, so let's sort of meet everybody here in the room and sort of online. Now, each of you guys will have 60 seconds, so about a minute, to tell us your name, your school name, the city and state where you guys are coming from, and then answer the following question. What do you think is the most important issue in this election? Now, again, let me remind you guys, when you're not talking, to go ahead and mute your microphones, and when you talk, go ahead and unmute. All right, so let's get to the first high school, and I think that the first high school, we're going to start off really simply in this room so that we can kind of get warmed up, right? Abington High School? Yes? Right, fantastic. And sort of tell us your name, your school, city, state, and then answer the question.
Okay. My name's Andrew Slade. I'm from Abington Senior High School in Abington, Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia. I think that the most important issue in this election will be the economy, the housing crisis, and the general situation in the United States, which as of late hasn't been particularly good. I think that the middle class is struggling, and I think that that's the most important issue to most voters.
Right. We've got a couple of them, but we'll narrow them down. Okay, so the second school we want to go to is Baton Rouge Magnet High School. Baton Rouge. Hi. Hello. Hi, guys.
My name is Chad Bittner. This is Baton Rouge Magnet High School. We're here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And I think the most important issue to this election is not only our economic policy, but how it affects our foreign policy, how we choose to spend our money, whether it be on war, oil, the things that manage to form relations, our policies on extra issues and
Our international standings, in a way. Great.
thank you, Sue Chin.
I like the shades. All right, fantastic. So and let's go to our third high school, Cassadaga Valley Central High School.
Yeah, I'm Tyler Carroll,
Hi, Tyler.
Cassadaga High School. It's actually in St. Clairville, New York, though.
Okay.
A rural area, probably 790 kids in the school total. That's middle and high school.
Okay.
I would feel the biggest issue right now in the upcoming election would indirectly the economy, but directly the Iraq war because of how it affects the economy. And around here, the gas price is around $4, which I know it's higher in other places, but it affects us much more than it does everywhere else because we drive everywhere. We no buses, there's nothing. We're driving everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's a big effect here.
Okay.
And it affects the country because of the farms.
Yeah. That's good. That's great. And then I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Tyler.
Tyler. Okay, thank you so much, Tyler, for repping Cassadaga. All right, right here in our room, Constitution High School, which isn't too far away from here. We have two students from Constitution High School. If you can introduce yourselves and yeah.
I'm Ian McShay,
Okay.
and Constitution High School is a magnet high school that's just opened up last year. It's on 7th and Market right down the street, basically.
Yeah.
And I think the most important issue, because it technically is affected and affects all Iraq and economics, is the environment. And, you know, finding alternative resources to use, because that we're getting our resources from the Middle East, and that affects our economy, which is why it's so expensive to buy gas and all that stuff. So we need to really work on the environment nowadays.
Great. Good. I'm glad someone brought that up. There's another student from Constitution High School. Just want to say hello. Do you want to say hi?
Christiana Sanders. I'm a sophomore in Constitution High School, and I think the main issue is the taxes and the economic problems.
Okay, great. All right, fantastic. And now we're going to go to Frewsburg Central High School. Did I pronounce that right? Frewsburg? Frewsburg. Okay, great.
Yeah. My name is Stephen Adelgren. I'm from Frewsburg, New York, another small rural area.
Okay.
And I would say that the most important issue is United States foreign policy, because I think that includes just about everything else, from Iraq to Iran to North Korea, and especially the problems with China right now with the human rights crisis and products that are coming from there that are tainted, or other economic problems resulting from that, and the fact that they take a lot of the world's oil, causing oil prices in America to skyrocket.
Interesting. It's interesting to see how much foreign policy is affecting you guys.
And how interconnected all
yeah.
of these issues
Yeah.
are. Everybody's observing
you
that
guys
these
are
are all
smart.
connected. Yes.
Okay, Conestoga High School. We have two students from Conestoga High School. Introduce yourselves.
All right, my name is Alice, and I'm a senior at Conestoga High School. Conestoga is located like the suburbs of Philadelphia, near the King of Prussia Mall. It's a little tidbit. I think one of the most important issues this election will be education, just because it affects students, well, firsthand, obviously, and also has effects into the economy based on how well educated the kids are from their K-12 education.
I'm Dan Mazer. I'm also a senior at Conestoga High School. And along with education, a lot of the college spending or college budgets are ridiculous, or who knows what. But that ties in with economics. Really, just with the recession that we're going in now, it's really interesting. And then tying in with the globalization and how we're all linked around the world, I really think that's a very important issue.
Okay, fantastic. Now we're going to go to Pencrest High School. Pencrest, you're online. Is Pencrest online? Oh, no. Pencrest is not online. Okay, we're going to go to Milford High School.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
I'm Julie Worsby, and I'm from Milford High School in Milford, Delaware, and I'm a sophomore. And I think that the most important issue of this election is public education, and specifically No Child Left Behind, just because I don't think state tests work. I think that they make students nervous and that they make the teachers concentrate on state tests more than they concentrate on actually teaching the students what they need to know for real life and not to get a 5 on the DSTP.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. And let's see, where are we going to now? We're going to Springfield High School. Springfield, are you on the line?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
Hi.
I'm Chloe. Go to Springfield High School in Springfield, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
We think the most important issues facing the election are the environment and education. I think we need to find alternative energy, and we need to rework current education systems in terms of No Child Left Behind and state tests.
Great. Okay, fantastic. And we're going to go right in this room to West Philadelphia High School. Brianna.
Hi everybody. My name is Brianna. I'm from West Philadelphia High School, and 3 things that's important to me is healthcare. Why I believe healthcare is an important topic is because, like, healthcare is a thing that you need to live with, something that you need, because healthcare covers anything that has to do with your health, dental, and all. So healthcare is important. Also, one thing that is important to me is, another thing is jobs. They speak about jobs a lot. And another thing is education. I think that education all over just needs to be reformed.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you, Brianna. All right, and now we're going to go to Western Wayne High School. Western Wayne.
Hi, my name is Tanner Vinton. I'm a senior at Western Wayne. Western Wayne is in northeastern PA, and we feel that the most important issue in this upcoming election is definitely the economy, because it governs what we're able to do with our foreign policy, our domestic policy, and education and the environment. So it really is going to be a determining factor, I think.
Okay. Big issue there. And then we're going to go to Chestnut Hill Academy. Do we have folks in Chestnut Hill? Great.
My name is Colin Foley. I go to Chestnut Hill Academy, which is in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I think one of the most important issues to me is gun control, and more specifically, like, its relation to urban violence, because it might be more of a personal thing being from Philadelphia, where the murder rate's skyrocketing and everything. But I think it's important to question, well, if you look at all the crimes going on, most of them are, and most of the deaths are related to something to do with guns. You have to question, why is what the principles we have down for gun control, why aren't they working? And it's definitely something that needs to be changed, so with all these, like, horrible things and stuff happening.
Yeah. That's a very good point. Since you're from Philadelphia, we talked about that in our first exchange. Let's go to, where am I here? Winterboro High School? Winder?
It's a Winder.
Winder.
I'm Katie Floyd. I'm from Winterboro High School in Winder, Georgia.
Okay.
Our opinion is that, or let me rephrase that, my opinion is that the war in Iraq is one of the more important things, if not the most important thing, this election, simply because it will affect kids my age and in and around, like, high schoolers in the long run as well as the short run. If they bring back a draft, then we're automatically affected by it, whether you're a male or a female. And so, it's my opinion.
Okay, great, fantastic. All right, so I'm going to kind of do this. I've been writing down what you guys have been talking about. Hopefully you guys all have been writing down what the other students, the issues that we're all talking about. It's obvious that we've got to talk about the economy. And we can talk about it in a foreign policy, domestic policy. I think we can break that up. Somebody had brought up the housing crisis. I think Andrew, you brought the housing crisis, and sort of the middle class crisis. And I'll probably have you explain that a little bit more in detail as well. And that may relate to the economy in the domestic sense. Let's see some of the other issues that the war. Again, you know, I think that we should address the war in a separate sense. I know that you guys have, again, tied it to domestic and foreign policy, and I think that that's fantastic because all of this is interrelated, as we know. Education is a really big one. So let's sort of talk about that. The environment, again, finding alternative fuel sources. And let's see, jobs. Has to do with the economy, but I think it's such a big topic that we can perhaps spend a little time talking about that. I think that that's what I've got on my list. Do you guys have any other ones that I've missed out? Taxes, somebody had mentioned taxes. Christiana, you mentioned taxes, so I'm gonna go ahead and put that on the list. And we mentioned education, yes? Okay, fantastic. So there we go. We've got taxes, we've got jobs, we've got the environment, we've got education. We have a lot to discuss here. We've got the economy, we've got housing crisis, we've got the war, and we've got the sort of the question of the middle class crisis. So, you know, big sort of, I think we've covered, I think we've covered it all, right?
Yeah,
oh, and healthcare,
can I jump in here and put this into context? Because I actually reviewed, there have been over the last 2 years, 10 surveys of the important issues among young people, and you guys certainly are consistent with most of your fellow students. And they are the top 5 in all of these surveys are education, the war in Iraq, healthcare, economy and jobs, energy, and the environment.
Yeah, and I think, you know, today, you know, I think these aren't issues that you know, the adults, the grown-ups, the candidates aren't talking about. What I think that we want to clarify here is breaking down these really large topics to how they affect us as young people, and that's really what the big sort of takeaway for today is. So let's just get to the first thing on the list. Thank you, Andrew, for writing that down. I love it.
Can I just ask one question before we do, though? It's interesting. One of the issues that is on the top of a lot of people's agenda, adults, older people, that I didn't hear mentioned today was immigration. And I was wondering if any of you had thought about that. Is that an issue to you?
Yeah, we were actually just discussing it at lunch.
Is that right?
Bring it up. Yeah.
Did somebody, go ahead, raise your hand if you want to
say anything about that,
Georgia.
anybody?
Katie? Go ahead, Katie.
We just put that it was important. We put it under our border security and our national security as well, because they kind of like tie apart, because people focus more on the south, like the southern borders of Mexico, than they do on Canada, and that's kind of where terrorists came in at. And so we were thinking, okay, border security, national security, all ties in together. And yeah,
okay,
that's our thinking.
Good. And you folks talked about it too a bit, did you?
Yeah, well, I think one of the reasons why I think we don't talk about it as much, because I know in the PA primary it kind of took a backseat to some of the other issues, so I just don't think we hear about it as much.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
And that's kind of surprised me too, because I think it should be an important issue, because it's something that's really taken a main role while there's been George W. was in office, just while there's one president. So it's now that someone new is coming in and people still aren't happy with it, it's definitely something that has to be addressed and changed.
But I also think, though, and in my sort of conversations with young people, and you guys can chime in, I see a hand raised, and I'll come to you, Tyler, right? Is that these, you know, we could probably sit here for hours and talk about every single issue, and I think that immigration specifically, the way that sort of the adults and the candidates are talking about it, maybe don't ring as true to young people. I'm not quite sure that we view immigration or border crises as different. I think that globalization, I think technology, I think we as young people have grown up in an age where, to me at least, it doesn't make any sense that there are borders other than sort of, you know, that there are rules, and I suppose it's going to get a little chaotic. But the idea that citizenship and country, and that you're tied to a certain nationality, I think is a lot more fluid in our generation. I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think that is the case. Did you want to jump in from Casadega, Tyler? Is that right?
Yeah, another thing I think that is big that I forgot to mention was Social Security, because is it going to be there when we need it? When I'm 80 and I don't.
Yeah, the answer to that would be no, probably. But
you're too young to be worried about Social Security. No, I'm kidding. We were talking about this actually at lunch.
Yeah, we were talking about this at lunch, and actually, yeah, and I was making that point. You find very few young people that say they're concerned about Social Security. They're the ones that ought to be, because I'm going to get my Social Security and you aren't.
But and my answer to that was sort of like, we're all too concerned about graduating college and getting jobs.
Right.
At this point, I mean, I don't even know when I'm supposed to get my Social Security check, but I just want to make sure that I have a job next year.
Exactly.
So let's get to that. Let's get to the big one, the economy and jobs. Let's sort of talk out this issue. A lot of you guys brought this up. Can we sort of talk about, whether it's the students online or students in the room, kind of additional comments and thoughts about the economy and jobs and the state of what it is for young people here today?
I know.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, I'm worried about when I get out of high school, are we still going to be in a recession, or are we going to be in a depression? And am I not going to be able to have a job? And am I going to have to live with my parents? Like, yeah. I mean,
a nightmare. Yeah.
I know it's a long time away, but I'm still worried about what's going to happen in 6 or 7 years.
Just by a show of hands, I just want to know, and everybody online participate as well, how many of you guys think that it's going to be pretty simple, if you have a college degree, let's say, to get a job?
Ooh.
One person. Thank you for the hope.
One optimist.
And the rest of us are not so sure. Okay, well that's an interesting state of affairs. I guess one of my questions, and I just quickly want to go over this with you, Dr. Hogan, is this idea that, does the president have much influence over whether or not we have jobs?
Well, yeah, no, that's an important question for all of these issues. You need to ask yourself, if we're discussing the presidential campaign, what exactly can we expect the president to do about these things? And the president likes to take a lot of credit for a good economy and then say, it's not my fault when there's a bad economy. And he's got a point either way, really, in a sense. There are certain things a president can do. But the Federal Reserve is an independent entity. The president can jawbone, is the term they often use, to try to persuade the Fed to do certain things. But the Fed's monetary policy is going to affect a lot of these things. What happens in the global economy is going to affect a lot of this. And the president, there's only so much the president can do about that. But certainly there are differences between the presidential candidates in terms of how they approach some of these economic issues that are important. And you need to look carefully at the kinds of plans that they have. There's very different philosophies represented by the kind of conservative trickle-down economics of, say, the Reagan administration and some of the more activist liberal economic theories. So it's important to look at these issues. The president does make a difference. Yes.
All right. So Western Wayne had brought up the economy. I was just curious as to if you guys can elaborate on why you guys picked that as a big issue, do you think, affecting young people?
Well, a lot of us right now are just starting to have jobs or have had them. Definitely the prices, gas has gone up. Also, minimum wage, that price really affects not only our spending money, but also a lot of times our parents, because we live in a rural area. You have to drive everywhere. Also, food prices have also gone up. Just those different things make it a lot harder to just get by. you don't have as much disposable income as you did before.
Yeah, yeah. So let's jump right into then breaking down the economy, because I mean I think let's start with the sort of domestic policy. I'm really surprised that you guys are affected by gas prices. I mean, maybe because I live in New York and you know what I mean, and I don't ever.
You don't drive.
I don't drive. Although I drove this weekend and I was like, $75? Are you crazy? Like that cost more than the car I rented. But let's kind of talk about, and especially in some of the rural areas as well, how do you guys see gas prices and how does it affect your lives as young people? Yeah, go ahead. You had a hand raised. I'm trying to speak up.
Casadega?
Yes, Casadega.
Well, around here, there's a lot of farms, and lately the business hasn't been so hot. And you say it might not affect you, but if you notice that the milk prices have gone up $1, $1.50, it's because it costs so much for the farmers to run their equipment or for the semis to get places. So it doesn't directly affect you with buying gas, but it affects you with buying everything else. Everything is transported, and that causes the prices of everything to go up. And that causes minimum wage to go up to help pay for everything, and it's just a vicious circle.
We have a gentleman that raised his hand. I can't read the high school that you're from with the black T-shirt. Yes, you.
Actually, it's blue, but...
Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
No, I'm just playing. No, really, I live in a rural area, even though I live in New York. I drive 25 minutes to get to work every day. So that really affects me. It takes almost half my paycheck to drive to and from work.
That's incredible. A week, how much do you spend on gas then? Does that come out to?
I spend $50 to $60 a week.
Just on gas alone?
Gas alone.
Wow, okay.
That's it. So I don't know what it is in the other areas. It's $3.89 here. You know, and the ethanol subsidies being what they are not working. I think I looked in the paper the other day, and ethanol was itself was over $2 a gallon plus, and so that's not helping us any. It's just driving food prices up and making everything worse. So I think domestic policy in where we allocate oil, not drilling in our reserves that we have. I mean, they've said since the 1980s, it's not going to help for years and years to come. Well, if they'd done it in the 80s, it would have been helping us now, and we'd be able to find an alternative energy source. So I think that
that's a huge impact.
It's not practical to turn to ethanol, but things need to be started. Looking into other things.
Brandon, do you have something to say?
That's just honestly me, not really saying that. That I think that if it was a better president, that we could fix these problems, because I don't understand how gas is nearly $4 up here. Close to $5, I think. I don't drive, but I know it's like $3.90.
And all of that, as we've said, we've made the conclusion. I mean, I think that we, walking into restaurants even, and everything's a little bit more expensive, and they have the sign that says, due to gas prices and the increase in milk and flour, blah, 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 your sandwich used to cost $4.89, is now $6.25. And you can't really argue. You're just like, oh well, here's another. So that's interesting. Okay, so that's a big one.
So I think we all agree that there's a problem. And I don't really know, but do you guys have any ideas for like a solution? Because I really don't know. I think it's a big problem, but I don't really know.
And it goes back to the question that Sue Chin was raising. What do you want to ask the next president to do about it? Because right now there's a lot of talk during the campaign about what we can do, and some of them I would argue are kind of gimmicks. And I think you guys are right on that the solutions that are needed are long-term. And if we'd have started some of our efforts to change over to alternative fuels and so on in the 80s and followed through, if we'd had leadership back then, we wouldn't be having this problem now. So we need to be thinking about the long term, what the president can do.
We need major change in our alternative resources.
Absolutely.
Just because even though we found small, like temporary changes like biofuels, you can't use them because in Mexico they use the corn ethanol for their gas, but then they had a huge strike and a protest about that because of how it's making food so expensive. Since corn is used for a lot of food products in Mexico, so we can't go to biofuels or ethanol because it's only temporarily, and it would make everything else go up. So we need to find alternative resources that'll last and that'll be long term and that we can use and that won't affect everything else. If it's
So what are some of those suggestions? Yeah.
Well, I think that wind energy and solar energy, I think that they are really underused because, I mean, it's a renewable resource. Like, it's always wind and the sun. It's always going to be there, at least for like a couple million years. And I think that another thing is that in America, we have like relatively low gas prices compared to like in Europe and stuff, but they have so much public transportation. I think that America, we need to have more public transportation. Like, I cannot think of like a single public transportation system that I have in like in my town and in my state. Like, I can't think of anything. And I think while it's a lot easier like in New York or Philadelphia, I just think even in public transportation needs to be increased because it'll be cheaper.
Yeah.
She's making an important point that that's the first mention of the conservation side. There's a production side that you've been talking about with drilling in Anwar or whatever and finding alternative sources, but then there's also the conservation side. And that's actually what Obama in particular has talked about more in terms of setting gas limits and so on.
Let's go to the high school with the yellow T-shirts that's anticipating. Sorry, I don't have the names of the high schools up.
Yeah, Ben Rouge High.
Hi.
We wanted to say one of the big problems with these gas prices is a lack.
Uh-oh. Have we lost the connection? Okay, we're going to come back to you guys because we've lost your connection, and I do want to hear what you have to say. Mr. Man with the cool shades, I promise. I'm going to come back to you. But we've lost your connection. It's a little bit frozen. So we're going to go ahead and go to Western Wayne, who's got a comment.
We definitely feel that biofuels are only an interim measure because eventually it will raise the price of food and things like that.
Building the compromise about. And
right.
I think
what we're going to have to definitely work on is things like nuclear energy, which can last a very long time. Also, things like wind power, solar power, stuff like that.
Okay.
Another point on public transportation. While that may work very well in a more urban setting, you wouldn't be able to have enough bus routes or monorails to really work out where it is more rural. It would just end up costing more than it would be just to move over to a different source of power.
Yeah.
So.
Great. Okay. All right. So we've got sort of environmental policies, and I think that thank you so much for sort of breaking that up, Dr. Hogan, between production and conservation. I think that in general that we should press any candidate to address environmental policies. We certainly have seen a lack and continual sort of lack of funding for environmental policies and alternative fuel, and I think that that's not even going to be an option for this next president. At least I hope.
And to address it in a comprehensive way, as you folks are. You guys are sounding a lot smarter than some of the candidates right now. We're getting some gimmicks, you know, these tax relief holidays and so on. That's a gimmick, and you guys are right on. You're saying we need a comprehensive plan to increase production and get alternative sources and do some conservation. So that's the way.
Really quickly before I move on, because I want to sort of get to kind of personal stories about your guys' schools. I have two girls raising their hands, and I'll get to you guys in a second. Is that do you in your schools have, or in your towns, have you seen changes in sort of even state or city governments on how they're treating the environment? Are there other ways that even your local assemblymen or laws in your cities that are changing to sort of support this idea that we have to figure out a different alternative fuel or environmental impact? Let me get to the two girls that were standing. You guys have been standing for a while. Why don't you guys chime in?
Okay, well, on the city level, we know that the Philadelphia Eagles have turned green. Well, yeah, I know.
What is that? Football, baseball? I don't even know what the Philadelphia Eagles do. Football.
And they
Okay,
have green
great.
uniforms too.
I'm kidding, but yeah, I'm not.
Okay. Well, they have plastic cups, and they've changed them to make them out of corn. So
Oh. Wow.
So they decompose within 45 days as opposed to plastic, which doesn't really decompose.
Right.
So that's just like an example of a way that we're trying to change. And in Philadelphia, we have the Comcast building, which is being built, and it's a green building.
Yeah.
So yes.
Great.
Just an example.
Great. I love that. Corn cups for football players. Let's get those boys involved. Okay, so we talked about environmental policies. Let's move on. I kind of want to talk about something really on the other side of it. Someone had brought up, Colin, you had brought up you live in Philadelphia. We know what the, I don't know, is it now the most, it's got to be up there as one of the most violent cities and urban crime, cities in the country. You brought up gun control. Can you kind of talk about a little bit about where your personal experience with it, and it's sort of like how you would address this to a candidate?
Well, my personal experience, I guess I kind of take like a really extreme view on it. Like I've never been someone who like understood really why people like went hunting or like stuff like that, or like even went to a shooting range, but you know, to each its own. But like in general, I've always felt that like, why does anybody besides the military and police even have guns? But I mean, that's, I guess, unrealistic with the amount of people in the country who like enjoy guns.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, if there's got to be something going seriously wrong if there's still, like, just recently there was a police officer murdered in Philadelphia, and I know he was killed by like an automatic weapon or some sort of like really extreme gun that you only hear of, like, you know, people in the military using, not even like most police forces. So it's like, if somebody can get a hold of that, like, what's going on?
Yeah. Ian, you go ahead.
Well, I live right near Pat's Cafe, where I think last year or 2 years ago, Gary Skursky was murdered at. And I see the memorial there, and they're really, the cafe is working really hard for trying to increase gun laws, because it's ridiculous that in this state you actually don't have to register for a gun. And there's so many, it's so easy to get a gun nowadays for people. And just to decrease the violence in the city, we need to do something about it.
We talked about this, actually. This was our first topic at the exchange. How many of you guys, just by a show of hands, have felt really unsafe, like genuinely unsafe in your school?
Oh.
So we all feel pretty safe when it comes to going into the doors of our high schools. Do you guys have somebody else? Yes. Go ahead. I can't seem to know the names of these. I'm just going to have to refer to the man in the shades, that group. I'm sorry.
I was giving the thumbs up to agree with you, but I would like to say in comment to violence and other activities that are involved in the community is it's really in part and directed to misuse and abuse in other areas. Hold on. If you've ever heard the broken window theory, if there's one broken window, then all the surrounding areas are going to continue to be abused. And so really we need better education and better community service, more cleaned up areas, and that should help bring about.
All right, there's a lady at the end of your row that maybe had a comment.
You said that even though no one really raised their hand in their schools for violence, because they feel safe. Like at our school, the rule is that if you get in a fight, then you automatically get expelled.
Expelled?
So no one really expelled. Wow. No one really.
And does it work?
Well, yeah. Like we really haven't had any fights, just arguments and yelling, but not really like fist fights or anything. It's like a zero tolerance, so I think that helps out a lot. Schools, like the surrounding schools in Baton Rouge, have had fights 2-3 times a day, so I believe that usually works.
Although our Our school is, excuse me, my name is Jared Ankerberg. Although our school is pretty clean, I'd say it's not the best representation of all the schools in our district. Like, I used to go to another high school, and I think we had like one day where there were maybe like 5 fights within the same day. So I think there's like a serious problem with violence in these schools, and I do think it correlates to substance abuse, because I noticed a lot of that at such schools.
Okay, we're gonna go, the gentleman there again in the blue t-shirt.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and actually agree with them very strongly, because I think that the issue isn't the gun in the individual's hand itself. I think it's the individual will to use that gun that's the problem, which ties back to a lot of social issues. Violence, domestic violence at home greatly contributes to juvenile delinquency and then ending up finding a gun. So I don't think the problem is itself the firearm. I think it's the surrounding social issues that cause the individual to use that firearm, or to desire to use that firearm, or desire to find one and obtain it.
Okay. That's also, let's move on. Let's go to another one, which I thought was kind of interesting. Someone had mentioned this idea of, Andrew, I think you had mentioned this idea of the middle class crisis. Can you sort of expand on that?
Sure. I think that the key to any successful society is a strong middle class, and in the United States today, I think that the classes are becoming increasingly polarized. The upper class and the lower classes are growing, and because of things like jobs, the decreasing availability of jobs, and higher gas prices, and generally higher costs, I think that the middle class is shrinking, and I think that that needs to change if we want to continue to thrive.
Is that then, I mean, obviously that would be, I think, directly related to a lot of people have conversations about class and taxes. You know, I think that taxes has to be into this conversation, and Christiana had brought that up. But what do you guys, do taxes at all affect you guys? I mean, do you guys care whether or not the candidates talk about taxes and the middle class? And I mean, we all, I don't know, I got a $300 check to stimulate the economy. I didn't stimulate it, but I bought something nice. But, you know, I mean, I don't know if that's considered that. But I get what they're trying to do. The message is that they're trying to figure out a way to stimulate this middle class and stimulate the economy. Go ahead.
Well, I think that taxes directly affect a lot of us, because I know I have a job, and I don't like seeing every week how much money's taken out for something that I didn't even get to vote for. Like, I didn't get to vote for the candidate that says, yeah, we're going to raise taxes, but we're going to have these programs. I didn't get to vote. And I think that in regards to the stimulus package, in a way, I don't really think it's going to work, because I think basically everybody's going to spend it on stuff that keeps on going up, like the cost of food and the cost of gas. Like, my parents were talking about how they're going to spend it just on gas, because they both live far away from, they both work far away from where they live. So I don't think it's going to really stimulate the economy. It's going to be spent on gas and food and stuff.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, and I think that Stephen, I think, right? Is that your name from Frewsburg?
Frewsburg, yeah.
Yes. You had talked about sort of that so much of your paycheck every week goes to gas, and then you have to think about the taxes cut out. So at the end of the day, is this job helping out? I mean, as much as it did, you know, do you think, you know, that job would have, I mean, just sort of talk about your personal experience with that, because I think at the end of the day, that's what it is how much we're taking away from our paycheck, right?
Well, I've been working since I was 14 years old. First, I worked for 2.5 years on a dairy farm, and then I brought home pretty good money because I wasn't driving so far to work. So I really have a good idea of the contrast. Now that I'm driving a half an hour to work, out of a $150 paycheck, I'll lose $35 to the federal government and $5 to the state government and $50 in gas, and then I end up bringing home what's left, and it's almost not even worth it to have the job.
Yeah.
You know, now.
Yeah.
So.
Tyler, you had a comment. You wanted to jump in there?
Yeah, I also drive about a half hour car to work, and I put at least $100 in my car a week.
Yeah.
My car isn't that fuel efficient, but I'm not going to go and spend thousands of dollars on a car that's cheaper for gas. I recently had to turn down a job because it was too far away for me to drive and it wasn't worth it. Because after taxes and the gas, he's right, it's ridiculous that I can hardly afford to go to work. And it's ridiculous.
I wanted to quickly just kind of turn to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I wanted to talk about we're talking about the economy, we're talking about the environment, we're talking about middle class and gas prices. I kind of wanted to hear your guys' opinion about what's happening there. Obviously, the whole with post-hurricane, and I'm just personally curious as to does your community feel these issues and the candidates addressing them differently than the rest of us do?
Definitely. Shortly after Katrina, we went through a period where we ran out of gas. Like, people were just like running. I remember having to walk like a lot of places. It was just for like a week or so, and now, even still today, and years later, we're still seeing like we have been struck with. We so quickly came up with so many people who are so poverty struck, and it's hard because like while we were talking about how this even ties into how people were talking about their paychecks and stuff. I see what gets taken out of my paycheck, and I don't need so much. I don't pay, pay for a lot of things. But I look at people who are years older than me, and these are actually their only form of income. And I think, how do people get by on that?
Right.
And it's just a big thing.
All right, I think we should move on to the next topic, which is a big one, the war in Iraq. I think, Katie, you had brought up that as perhaps for you being the most important issue that you want a candidate to speak about. Could you kind of elaborate on that?
I think that if a presidential candidate all of a sudden, or if a presidential candidate is elected into the presidency and into the White House, and they decide that the best way to get everyone out of Iraq is to send more troops over there, that way you quickly build up the Iraqi government to where they can stand on their own, that's going to imply that people have to sign up for the military. And people don't want to sign up for a military willingly if they know that there's a chance that they're going to go over there and they might die, whether it be over there by a bomb or whether it just something unexplainable happens.
Yeah.
And so if they bring the draft in and people have to, they have to sign up, that means that people my age in a couple of years might have to sign up. That might mean that I live with 3 brothers, 2 of which could be involved in the draft. I would not want to see the draft come into effect simply because I do not want my family to have to deal with, family members in the war. And I know that there are other people out there who have children, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, moms, dads, and anybody else that do have people over there and they signed up willingly.
Yeah.
And so I think that as for the draft, it's very, very important to see what their perspective is on that, because I don't want to see a presidential candidate come in and say, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to have a draft. I don't want to see that.
Western Wayne, you had something to add on to what Katie was saying.
The likelihood that there's ever going to be a draft in our lifetime, I don't feel that ever going to happen. While they do have a large demand for troops, no political candidate is ever going to even suggest the draft. It'd be political suicide right then and there. Also, the fact is that we do have a lot of troops that aren't stationed in Iraq or in Afghanistan that we're still able to move into the conflict area if we do need to eventually boost troops. Well, it will strain our military. It is still an all-volunteer force, and I know myself and a lot of my classmates have already joined up and will be heading over, so it's not like coming through this, I don't know what we're talking about.
Well, and Katie, I want to give you a chance to respond to that, but, I'm interested, because I was going to say by a show of hands how many of you guys are either enlisted or going to enlist or know someone very close to you that is currently enlisted. So I think that's Western Wayne. You guys are definitely overrepresented there in that situation. So do you I mean, without interjecting any opinions, and this is honestly just a question I have, because I certainly have been doing interviews with veterans that have come back from tours. It's not what they expected and what they signed up for. For you, why did you sign up? What was the reason for you, and do you believe that is going to make a difference, and kind of talk about your involvement in that?
Well, I personally signed up as because I feel that is a way to give back to my country, since it has given so much for me. Who else signed up? You guys want to say, Mike? You want to say something?
I joined the military also due to the fact that we should have people on, so other troops have their lives for us.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll respect for that.
Yep. Okay. So it's a sense of sort of giving back, and obviously something that you feel that you want to give back to. Now, Katie, did you have a response to something, or?
I was going to say, I plan on signing up for the military after high school, and that's my personal decision, and that's me. I don't want to see my family have excess children signing up for the military. As for a comment back to the Wayne group, I was going to say, I don't think that anyone ever goes into anything planning on hurting themselves. And so the fact that you said that you don't think a political person running for the presidency is going to say directly that they want to implement a draft, I don't think anyone goes into the White House saying, I want to implement a draft. I think that it just, over the course of many different things that take place, it's going to happen. Whether or not it does or it doesn't, that's a different story. I'm not saying that it is. I'm not going to say that it's not. But you do need to have an open mind in saying it might happen.
Yeah, I would just add, I think Katie's making an important point that the military, the volunteer military, is being stretched thin by this war. Now, none of the candidates are talking about reinstituting a draft, but I think she's got raising an important concern.
Right. Whether we call it a draft or not, the whole point is that we
may reach a point where we have to. I mean, the elder George Bush went into office pledging he would never raise taxes, and the circumstances changed. There was a famous line, "Read my lips," and he had to raise taxes, and a similar kind of thing conceivably could happen if the war in Iraq were to continue for a long period of time.
Now, we've talked about sort of the physical war in Iraq and how it affects us as young people, as potential soldiers in the war on the ground. What about sort of the effects of the war? A lot of you guys have mentioned in general how it affects us in our economic policy, our foreign policy, the environment. Certainly, you guys have made the correlation between the war there and gas prices. Can we sort of talk about what other issues within the war that you would like to see the candidates address? Let's go to the school there, girl in the yellow T-shirt in the back in an auditorium with a gray sweatshirt.
I would like for the candidates to address how veterans are being treated after they come home from war, because I personally know people who have come back from like Iraq and they've been severely injured because of bombs, and they talk about not having enough equipment and being in danger of roadside bombing and not having the things that the military does have, but they're not giving our troops. And how when they come back, some people I know have been homeless or have needed places to stay because the government isn't taking care of the very people who are trying to protect all of us.
That's a very good point.
Excellent.
All right, let's go down to the other woman in the yellow T-shirt that we spoke to earlier. Yep.
I just wanted to point out that the girl, one of the people said that the guy once said that he wanted to get into the army to the military to fight for his country.
Western Wayne,
but I wanted to join a couple months ago, not just to fight for my country, but because in high school I want to try to get into college. And college isn't cheap, So they promise scholarships and pretty much pay for my college tuition. And I know I'm not the only one who thinks that. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. when I got deep into it, I realized that they really weren't going to pay for all punishment, just a part of it. Right. And that I really didn't want to be in the Army, I just wanted to work around it. Yeah. But I was going to get drafted. So for the presidency, I want a president that will, fix that and just have people who want to not just be in the Army, but work around it and be promised and have capitalist promises.
Okay.
I also wanted to add in that we're talking about what we want to see the president address, and that's because we're not commander-in-chief, and we want to see what the president's going to do. And my deal is that I want a president that's going to do something. That's not going to say, oh, well, there's a problem in Iraq, because that's obvious. But also, I want a leader and somebody who's going to make this country feel like it's safe again, because I feel like many people don't feel that way.
Okay, Brianna in the room, did you have something to add to that?
I feel like, as what she said, I feel like that is true about how you see the U.S. Army ads in magazines, such as a Vibe magazine. You will see Army guy and they're showing how he might pay for college and stuff, but that's not necessarily true, because you find out that when you go into the Army or you start doing research on it, you don't necessarily have to go into it, but you can just do research and you find out that yes, they do pay partial, and it's like, oh well, you do something for me, but I'm not going to live up to my full commitment. See, they want you to fight in a war or draft you, but they don't want to pay the whole college tuition. And 9 times out of 10, you're not guaranteed to come back. I'm not saying that, but you're not guaranteed to come back in full stable health. And I feel like that the war over there is pointless now, because it's becoming too major of a problem. We've been in this war ever since Bush got into office. And it's just like, okay, it's 2008 now, and this war has been going on for too long, and it's just like too many people are dying, and then when vets come home, there's not enough resources for the vets to get treated the right way. Like, the damage they have been going through is like severe, and they do need help, like counseling, medical help, and everything, because you don't know what they're going through and how they're suffering day to day.
Western Wayne, you wanted to respond to that? Or add to it, rather?
Well, at the risk of polarizing the discussion, but what do we as youth really want? Do we want to pull out immediately, or do we want to stay in there and get a stabilized government? I really can't speak for everyone in this room, because we've got a variety of opinions on the subject, but I'd like to bring up, what do we actually want to see in Iraq?
Great, that's a great question. Okay, let's start with Tyler. Let's start with you.
I personally didn't sign up for the military for one major reason, is because I think the motivations of the war have changed way too much. I think we went in there for one reason, turned into another reason, and then we just started making excuses while we were there, and just started getting way out of control. And if we're there for a reason, that's fine, but let's stick to it and not get off topic.
So what do you suggest at sort of answering his question of what do you?
I think we should pull out slowly. I mean, right away leaves it way too unstable. I mean, that's uncalled for. But I don't think we should stay over there. I think we should like slowly pull out. Maybe help out a little bit, but I don't think it's necessary to do it as much as we are.
Okay, let's go to the two girls standing in the back. Yep.
Well, I think a major problem with the war is that we sometimes forget we're even in a war, and I think we were misinformed about it, and we need to really raise awareness about it. And I think that would be the first step to addressing the problem and solving how to finish or have a success in it.
So you feel like there's just a lack of information, that you want to know more before you answer that question then?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think we need to realize that we are in a war, and I think sometimes we forget that.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
As what he said, I do believe that we should pull out slowly and also start cutting back the funding for the war and put it towards more important things to help us in America, as well as helping to help the conditions over here, but not to the point that it causes both countries to collapse.
Okay.
I'm sorry. You have to help yourself before you can help other people, and I think we need to focus on that.
Okay, so let's go to Stephen. Is that right? Stephen, you have your hand up?
Yeah, that's me. I just think that, again, what the other guy said about how our motives have changed since we've been in Iraq. We went there because Bush was telling us they have weapons of mass destruction, and now we have proof of weapons of mass destruction in places like North Korea, the possibility of there being such in 3 to 5 years in Iran. And I think we can either be world police or we can't. And I think at this point, with our economy in the state it is, staying in Iraq is not practical. If we are going to be somewhere, there are more important places in this world that we could be. We could be in Iran. We could be in North Korea. We could be stopping genocide in Darfur. We could be doing more useful things than trying to save a sinking ship, as it were.
All right, let's go to Julie, who's in the room here.
Well, I think that an issue that's been brought up is definitely helping the veterans, but I don't think it's just the government that can help. I think that all of us, even if we're only 16 or 17, I think that we can all do something. Like, I know me personally, my dad was in Desert Storm, and I always think, what happens if my mom hadn't been able to send him things? So I know I'm involved in a program called Soldiers Angels, and basically I write to soldiers every week, and I send care packages. And I think even if, I know I don't want to join the army like that or the military, that's just not for me, but I think that everybody can do something to help.
Okay. I just want to make a reminder for you guys online to mute your mics if you guys aren't speaking, because we're getting ambient noise. Yes, Alice, do you want to say something?
I just think that we have a responsibility in Iraq, and although it is kind of a mess over there, and it may have been our fault, and it does seem kind of like a dead end, I feel like we have been in there, and we do have responsibility to the Iraqi people to keep our presence there and make sure at least everything's in order. And I know one aspect of the Iraq war that I've been hearing that has been kind of underplayed is that the Iraqi refugees, and sometimes they apply for asylum in the United States, and a lot of times we just can't grant them asylum. I don't know what the reasons are. So that's kind of highlighting how we have to be responsible to the Iraqi people and Iraq.
Okay.
Just a couple of quick points. This is an excellent discussion, and this is one of those issues. This is the issue of all of the issues we're talking about that the president really can affect as commander-in-chief. So it is important, and there are important differences among the candidates that we can all look at because they have very different plans for Iraq. I would point out also that it's just connected to all these other issues in terms of the economy and so on. The latest figures for spending on the war in Iraq are $521 billion that we have been spending so far in this war. That's a lot of money, and so the question becomes, how does that affect all of these other issues as well?
Let's get to, Ian, do you want to jump in?
Well, I agree with those people here about pulling out slowly, because we went into that country, destroyed it, and now it's our job to reconstruct it, like we did with Japan after we bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We helped to rebuild their economy and country. Not only that, we need our soldiers back home, because we need military influence in America. Like what happened to Katrina. When my family went to New Orleans last year, and we've heard horror stories from a man in a taxi who told us what he had to go through and how slow the FEMA was at rescuing them, how when they were in the Superdome, people were dying, sick people weren't being taken care of, and they just throw bodies, and it was horrifying. He couldn't even tell us the story fully because he broke down in tears and couldn't finish it. Because we need our military force back here. If something like that happens again, will we be able to save the people in our own country?
Western Wayne, you wanted to jump in?
We definitely feel that we do have a responsibility to the Iraqis because we did go into their country, regardless of the reasons for it. The fact is we are there now, and we can't just leave. It takes a long time to build up a country to make sure that it's stable, and if we pull out too fast, even if it's within like a few years or so, we'll still have to maintain a sizable force in the region. I mean, we're still in Germany and Japan and South Korea after 60-some years. We will, Iraq is essentially our baby, and I feel that we will have to be there for a while.
So is that sort of the answer to your question then? Is that you believe that we should continue to have a military presence there, but do you believe then that it's a slow pullout? Do you think that it's just out of, how would you answer your own question?
Well, I believe that personally it will be a rather slow pullout. Of all the candidates, I believe that both Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton have talked about pulling out within the year if they're elected. John McCain says within 2013. I don't feel that no matter who gets elected that it's going to be that quick. So yeah, the solution will be us having to stay there and maintain stability in the region.
Okay. One more sort of comment about the war. I mean, we could spend the entire 2 hours talking about this. So, Andrew, yeah.
I'm not sure that I completely agree with the idea of staying in Iraq for any extended period of time. I think we need a phased withdrawal to prevent a total collapse of the semblance of a government that we have built so far. But I think that a lot of the violence there is a result of our presence. I think that they're fighting because we're there. The people who are fighting, they don't want us there, and I think that the violence would decrease if we were to leave.
I think, yeah, and you know, I think that it's all the stuff that we're talking about. I mean, we've as far as the war in Iraq goes, we've talked about the draft, we've talked about the veterans, we've talked about the way it affects our gas prices. I mean, we're talking about this as young people in a really holistic way. So I think that it's amazing that we can see the scope of the war for more than what we're fed in the news. And I think that the question remains of whether or not we are going to ask this candidate and our president to address specifically the war, and so, you know, and at the end of the day, it affects us more than it affects any other generation. So let's move on to our to another topic that we talked about. Let's do. Have we talked? Do we want to? Let's see. Someone had mentioned healthcare. Brianna, you had mentioned healthcare. Yeah, and the only person that actually mentioned healthcare. Yes. Do you want to sort of elaborate on why you feel like this is an important issue in this election?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Healthcare is a very important thing in this political thing, is because I believe that healthcare is important because I'm from West Philadelphia. And in West Philadelphia is two parts of West Philadelphia because it's a bigger part. And it's called the upside and like the bottom. And then the bottom is an infant mortality rate. And it's all-time high. And I feel like, you know, because if you're a teen mother, you're not really prepared to be a mother, you know, and you're not sure what steps it takes for you to take care of a child. And what happens with that is you hurting the baby by not giving it health care and not getting the proper shots so it passes away. Or think about someone, if everybody ever saw a crash, how the man didn't have health insurance and he couldn't even get himself help because he had that bad infection. I feel like as Americans, I'm not trying to put another load on the middle class, but why does the poor have to suffer when they don't have health care? And that's something that's really important. Even though I have health care, I have people in my family who don't have it. So when they come across a health problem or a problem in their health, what can they really do? Because that's just, oh, well, they can go to the emergency room, but they only go get treated for that one time, and it's not going to really help them for the long term.
Right, preventative, right. Colin, did you want to add to that?
I was just going to say a general thing because she got into a lot of specific stuff, but if you just like take a step back and look at it and you think, like, how could anybody feel like secure as a citizen when they don't have like coverage for health? Because that's like something every day, like you feel like my life like isn't settled or complete because I can't even I have to worry that if something happens to me, I don't have like coverage for it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because I mean, health is essential to life, and since life is a human right, why can't health care be a human right? Every citizen in this country deserves the right to full and effective health care.
Katie, did you want to add to that?
All I have to say about healthcare is, yes, I agree that people should have healthcare. However, who's going to fund it? If you have the government creating like more and more healthcare opportunities, that's more taxes coming out of my paycheck. And people are talking about how they're not going to have it, or that their paycheck's already thin enough between them taking taxes out for Social Security and et cetera, and between gases and stuff of that sort. I think that there should be health care for children that there should be universal health care for young children. However, I think that if you are 18 and older, you should be able to provide your own health care. And so as for people saying that there should be universal health care, I disagree with that.
Okay.
And yeah.
Someone in the room? Yep, Christiana?
Well, I think everything hands in hands because like healthcare, and that has to do with class too, because you know, if you live out on the outskirts of the inner city, you might have better health care, and people that live in the inner city might not have health care at all. And that has to do with the war, especially because like all the money is going to the war, and if we cut back some of the money for the war, we can use it on health care or other things that we need to survive.
Dan, did you want to add to that?
Well, I mean, yeah, actually, well, I thought it was kind of interesting how like we're kind of doing this simply, but because I think it's a really like tough issue, because I mean, I think obviously we all want people to, you know, have health care, but you know, it's really difficult when we talk about, you know, government spending on the health care, and also like you look at places with universal health care and how they're dealing with that, and it would be a lot different if we did have universal health care, because we're much larger than say like Great Britain. But also like what you just said with the government spending, and we didn't really talk about it. The professor brought it up earlier. I'm sorry to call you the professor.
Or the doctor.
I've been called worse.
But I know at the Constitution Center, they have like this little thing that like shows like where all your taxes are going to. And like the biggest portion, and I don't know anymore, because I think it was 2006, but the biggest portion is going to Social Security. So I don't want to like bring up a whole nother topic, but I mean, I think it's really interesting because we didn't talk about it at all, but that's where a lot of this money that's being deducted from our money, maybe it could be used for healthcare. That's where it's all going.
And I think that that's, you know, and again, I'm not an expert. You're the expert. But I think what we've all brought up here is that, okay, we've got a finite pie. You know what I mean? Like, we all know how to budget. We've done it before. You know, you go to the store, you have X amount of dollars. You just have to figure out where to spend it, right? And if you're saying the majority of your paycheck, or you know, the spending goes into Social Security, certainly I don't know if all of us young people got in a room to vote where the pie should be split, if we all were like, you know what, I think it should be Social Security. I think I'm not going to care about health care, you know, next year, or whether or not I can pay for my college education. I think it also speaks to the fact that probably this is who the candidates and the president certainly has in the past been listening to, and that's why we're here today to say, like, yeah, we care about health care, but do we care enough to give up perhaps even a stab at some sort of health care policy that'll affect all of us?
Well, the candidates are all listening, and they recognize that health care is a problem, health insurance. There's 40 million uninsured Americans have no health insurance. That's a real problem. Everybody understands that. And again, there are very real differences, both philosophically and in the details of the plans that are being offered. John McCain just came out with his plan. It's he describes it as a market-based solution to the health care crisis.
What does that mean?
Well, he means he's going to look for incentives for the private insurance companies and so on to cover more people. Whereas the Democratic candidates both have what would be better described as government subsidized health care programs. So they're very different programs, and if you're concerned about it, the issue is to inform yourself about the differences between the two plans and look at expert opinion on which might work better and make your decision. You know, again, I don't think, I'm not an expert. I don't know which plan's going to work better, but there are people that study those and those things, and there's a lot of good information out there on both health care plans, both Democratic and Republican health care plans, and you need to inform yourself and make a choice which you think is going to work better. But everybody, the good news is both candidates or both parties are addressing the issue.
All right, let's get to everybody online. Let's start, just go in order. We'll start with Stephen.
Okay, I just wanted to say that I agree with Katie in that universal health care sounds like a great idea, and ideally it would be excellent, but I don't think it's practical to work for all America. I don't think that it can work the way everybody wants it to, and that in a lot of countries where they do have universal healthcare, that healthcare quality for everyone goes way down. So I just think that universal healthcare is not something that is attainable.
Do you have health insurance?
Yes, I do.
How do you have health insurance through?
I have it through my parents, and my mother works at the school. We get through the school. I'm not saying that people shouldn't have health insurance. I'm not saying we shouldn't help them. Sure. But I think it'd be great if we could, but I don't think we can.
Okay. Tyler, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a big hit on the society with money coming out of our paycheck for the universal health care. But is it really that bad of an idea? Because, I mean, we say, yeah, we want to support our country, we want to be patriotic, but then why can't we pay that extra couple bucks to make sure that everybody's healthy? I mean, and even not complete health care, but maybe some health care. Not only that, but even if there's no universal, a lot of people just can't get health care, not because they can't afford it, but because they just won't give it to them. They won't qualify because they have a bad hip or because they have a bad lung. I mean, it's too much.
And then let's just move right across. Let's go to the two ladies in the back.
Hi, I know that personally in Pennsylvania we do have a program for children whose parents may not can afford the total thing of health care. It's called CHIP. But the problem with even our state is that once you become 18, you are disqualified from the program unless you're in college. And many college students, once they come out and get a job, it's very hard to afford health care when you're only making but so much money because you're a newcomer.
Yeah.
I would just say I don't know who said it, but life is a human right, and they thought healthcare should be a human right. I really agree with that. I think it's like great on, but I feel like it kind of goes back to education, because if you can't receive a good education, then you can't get the high quality job, and then you can't afford that healthcare. So I think it all goes back to reforming our education system and No Child Left Behind, reworking that to really improve everyone's education. Karen.
Okay, we're going to get two more comments on healthcare, and we're going to move right into that education topic. Let's go down to the ladies with your standing up. Hi, yes. Go ahead.
I personally have a father who is 70, and I also depend on Social Security. That is a benefit to my family. So being as a young person, I feel that it shouldn't just be that if you're old, you need it, and if you're young, you're okay. You're going to wait till you're old and then you need it. I feel that even though young children who parents might have passed away or something, or with elderly people, they also depend on that money also, which I want to bring to the point that it's not just elderly. People go down through generations, and the youngest people can also benefit from that type of service.
Fantastic. Andrew in the room.
As far as the idea of universal health care, the preamble says promote the general welfare. I think that health is the purest essence of welfare, and that the government has some responsibility to promote that among its citizens. And people mentioned higher taxes as a result of a universal health care system, which I don't think would necessarily be the case. I know under Hillary's plan, I would assume Obama's is similar. She's not going to raise taxes, but rather reallocate tax dollars that the government has now, right? Like rather than giving cuts to the wealthiest 2% of Americans, she'll use that money to finance a universal health care program.
Okay. And I think for me, I saved what to me is the most important issue, but that's my voice doesn't count because this is about you guys. It's about education. I think that all of us as students and as young people, certainly competing in this global market, you guys have to have an opinion about our education system and how we've succeeded or failed and what we would ask these candidates and our president to do. So let's go ahead and start with you, Brianna.
If I had a chance to meet Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton or John McCain, I would just sit them down and ask them, what are you going to do about education? Because the system is failing. is not working, is failing. And I don't want to, as I write speeches and stuff, and I said this in my speech, you know, I want to grow up in life to succeed. I'm not trying to fail. And this whole system is setting us up to fail. No Child Left Behind law is designed for failure. I don't feel like this is helping us in no way at all. It's putting us under these, giving my school and other schools that's not succeeding labels because we're not getting funding. And I feel like if we pull out the war, all that billions of dollars can go to education or any other topic. But I feel like education is where it should be going because we are the future. And how are we going to be the future if we're not even being prepared to learn?
How do you think then, just specifically, just really quickly, I want to ask you, how do you think then the education system has failed you?
The education system has failed me because I am in the 7th grade, and I feel like I'm one of the smartest kids in my class. That's what's hard. I should not be one. It should be more than that. It should be more than one smart kid in every class. You shouldn't just be the person that everybody, hey, what's the answer number 5, Brianna? Like, why can't you just know it yourself? Like, I feel like, oh, it's individually one person. It's not individually one person problem. It's not the people. It's the system that is failing us. And it is failing us because I can't learn like that. I can't learn under circumstances where I'm the only person. I feel like the smart person. I don't like feeling like that. I like feeling around people that I am. And I don't feel as though that my nieces and nephews are learning. I don't feel like anybody in my family is learning from the system that is failing me. And the only way we're going to get a good education is to pay for it. What? Why I have to pay for education?
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. I knew you'd have a great answer to that. And we're just going to take turns because I think everybody has an opinion about this. So I'm just going to go in order. We'll go somewhere online. We'll go back to Tyler.
Education, in my opinion, like I'm going out of state to college, and I filled out my FAFSA, and my parents' income is not high at all, and I did not get any kind of financial aid
at all.
I did. I got maybe $10,000 for all 4 years. But
how much
to get an education, it's going to cost me about $120,000.
Where are you going to get the other $90,000?
Exactly. It's all going to be student loans, and I'm going to pay back for the rest of my life, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. And the No Child Left Behind Act, it's actually encouraging higher test grades. But the kids that get lower test grades, I mean, they have the higher dropout rate. So it's almost encouraging schools to let kids drop out so that the average test grade will become higher.
Right.
Because they're wanting to see the average test grades go up, and then they'll get more funding just because that kid drops out and helps the average go up.
This No Child Left Behind thing, it's not sounding so good. All right, we'll go back to someone in the room. Go ahead. You want to start?
Okay.
Julie?
Well, with No Child Left Behind, I don't think that it helped because in my school we had a state test before No Child Left Behind, and everybody just gets so stressed out during it. And I know, like, I'm a good test taker, but I know some people, like, they just freeze up on tests. Like, they're great in class, they contribute to the discussions, and they can do everything, but at tests they're not a good test taker. So it shows up that they're not succeeding and stuff. And No Child Left Behind, it makes the teachers, oh my God, we have to cover this, we have to cover this, we have to cover this. And then they don't have time to really teach you other things because it's not on the state test.
Right.
Like with social studies and science, we only have them a couple years. So right now, not that much emphasis is placed on social studies and science because we won't have that till next year.
Mm-hmm.
But then next year, it's not going to be about reading and math, it's going to be social studies and science.
So it's all based around this test.
Yes.
Katie.
My personal opinion when it involves education is that it starts from the student. If the student does not want to learn, that student is taking up wasted space in a classroom. The student themselves has to have a will to want a better education because they have to want to do something outside of high school. And if they drop out, they drop out. I don't think that there can be a law that says that you have to stay in school and you have to get this education. Taxpayers' money is being wasted if you are forcing a kid to sit in a classroom when if they don't want to be there, they will act up, which disturbs my education, and I do want an education. I want more for myself. And if they're not acting up in the classroom, then they're just wasting paper by saying they're taking a test if they're just going to fail it, and they don't care. And there are kids that I do have classes with that could care less on being in the education, or being in the classroom, receiving an education. And so when people say that it starts with the teachers, that it starts with the government, and so I disagree. It has to start with the student, and the school has to have enough students that want an education. And I do attend a school that has enough students that they supply classes that gets me my education that I want. But there are also classes that if you don't give a rat's butt, you're a student. So it's one of those, like,
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right. I know. Again, this isn't a debate. Those are winners and losers. I'm just trying to flesh out all the ideas. So let me just get to everybody, and then when we have time, we'll sort of get to.
Before it becomes too much more of a debate, we should point out that nobody is running for the extension of No Child Left Behind.
Yeah.
George Bush is not running for another term, thanks to the Constitution.
Picked up on that. Right.
and so I don't think that's an issue. But again, you also ought to be talking about higher education, and one of the problems. And this is one of these issues the candidates are not talking about as much. They're talking more about healthcare, more about the war in Iraq than education. But and some of you ought to be looking at college tuition increases over the last 5 or 6 years. At Penn State, for example, we are now the most expensive public university in the country. If you're planning to go in state, it's still going to cost you $14,000 plus in tuition. So
a year.
Yes. Yeah. That's a real challenge, and you could be in debt for the rest of your life, taking out student loans to finance that kind of thing.
And that's just going to continue to increase if the trend goes. Dan, did you want to say something?
Yeah, we are from Conestoga High School. It's a pretty affluent area, but it's pretty interesting because I'd say maybe even 50% of our area is all the kids have to get the student loans because they still don't have the money because even like
with
the higher
income bracket,
incomes, they don't have.
It's still not affordable.
Spare that kind of money.
Right. Let's go down to somebody online. Somebody who hasn't spoken. So the girls waving their hand in the back. We'll start with you guys and then go across the row. All right, ladies.
Well, I personally don't really agree with the No Child Left Behind Act, and I feel like standardized test scores don't fairly represent someone's intellectual ability. I think that's for a variety of reasons. People can get so stressed out about tests that they don't take them all. I think someone already brought up that point. And to have that test score that maybe you didn't do well because you were having a bad day, or teachers get so obsessed with the test, isn't really fair to have that follow you around and put a mark on your reputation. And I think that the fact that teachers teach only to the test is horrible. I think they really lose sight of what's important in an education, and you don't get everything that you should out of your education.
Okay.
You also find that the problem starts off in elementary school. The main problem that when students don't want to learn is because from the jump they don't get a teacher or they don't get the special attention that they require, so that by the time they do get to middle school or to high school, they don't have to drop out because they know what they have to do to succeed. It starts off when you have a child who can't get what they need because of funding, maybe because of the area that they live in, because maybe just the teacher doesn't care, and it's often not fair. And I know this really happens a lot in urban schools when you have so many children that no one gets the attention that they really need, and they hire.
I'd like to elaborate on that. Well, we live near a city, but we are extremely well off in contrast to them. And we were a school that received a grant called Classroom of the Future. And for the past 2 years, our freshmen and now sophomores have gotten laptops. And I'm a sophomore and I have one, and I'm not complaining at all. I mean, it's really great, but I think that some funding for that could be going to the schools in the cities and
sharing. We like that. Young people like to share. Is it really quick because we got to wrap this up.
Okay, I just wanted to say that I agree that some schools don't have enough money for books. We shouldn't be given laptops and smart boards when they don't have enough books. That's it.
All right. Okay. And our last comment about education will come from the last two schools. Let's start with Stephen, right? And then we'll go to Wayne.
I'm going to disagree with Katie very strongly this time, because I think that there are students that suffer from a lot of economic and educational they have less opportunities than we do, and I think when those kids just drop out of high school and end up not finishing, and especially if you encourage them to do that, they're the kids that are going to end up being on welfare for their lives. They're going to be the ones you're going to be paying for out of your paycheck for the rest of your life, because they're not going to have any opportunities to get jobs. So you can't do just about anything without a high school diploma these days, let alone a college degree.
Yep.
So I think that is really huge. Other thing about college tuition is, with college tuition so high, we're finding it cheaper. Instead of educating lawyers in America, we're educating lawyers over in India now, because we can train them cheaper in American law to work for us over there, and we don't have to have them here. So it's making the job market ridiculous to try and compete for anything. College tuition costs are hurting us all over the place, from jobs to student loans to paying for people with their welfare checks.
Great. Okay, and final comment online from Western Wayne.
Personally, I'm going to have to agree with Katie. I do feel that it does start with the student. That even
Katie.
Yeah. Not everyone are wrestling, but I personally feel that it does start with the student, and eventually it will come to the point that you're going to have to make something of yourselves with the education that you're presented with. And naturally, of course, my friend Danny here wants to disagree. And Danny?
I do disagree with Katie, because you can't blame the student for what society pushes on them. You know, you want to say that sometimes the less academically achieving kid doesn't do as good, and you just want them to drop out. Well, if they drop out, then they're just going to end up doing worse in life than if they stay in high school until they get their diploma, and maybe then they'll have a chance at further education after high school.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to disagree with Danny. I don't know of any teacher who actively wants a student to drop out. I think that it does come from yourself whether you are going to do it. But
Right. Okay, and very final comment, Christiana in the room.
Well, I just think we all should follow the rule. Kids, keep it simple, students. Like, I think education is simple if you put your mind to it. So I agree with Katie and disagree with her at the same time. Like, it does start from home. It starts from the environment you're at, and it starts from the student. But if the teacher is not teaching what it's supposed to be, then the student wants to see if they're not pushed to do what they need to do.
All right. Okay, I have to, we're going to run out of time, because we need our top 5, guys. So you need to help me here. And maybe Dr. Hogan, you can jump in. Okay, from what the conversation seems to be, I think that you guys are all concerned about the environment, the economy, the war, healthcare, and education. Okay, we've got that down. Now we have to figure out, okay, what's the most important to the least important, right? I can't even believe that we're going to try to do this in like 5 minutes. All right, so how should we do this? Like, I guess, do we do it by a vote of hands, or how do you guys want to do this?
I think hands.
Hands?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess that's a...
But before we do that, let's just remind you what we're trying to do here, and that's not settle whether we ought to have government-sponsored universal health care or a market-based, you know, we don't, McCain's plan or about, but should health care be a top priority for the presidential candidates when they campaign?
And I also want to say, because these are very big topics that everyone's talking about, I kind of wanted to remind you guys, because I've been writing notes and about what are the specific things within these big topics. You know, when we're talking about the environment, I think that we all agree that we want the candidates to address alternative fuel sources. Is that right? Mm-hmm. When we talk about the economy, I think that we all want the candidates to address jobs. Mm-hmm. I think that when we talk about the war, we talk about sort of taking care of the veterans, what their policy will be, whether we stay in, we pull out, or if it's a long term. And then when we're talking about health care, I think we just want them to address whether or not that whether it's universal health care or not, that each one of us believes, well, I don't know, not everybody believes that.
Yeah, do we expect they all ought to have a plan and clearly articulate that plan so that we can have a choice? We can understand the differences.
Yeah, whether we believe universal health care
whether we vote for one person or another person. Sure.
And with education, and this is the one that I think got the most sort of everybody kind of heated, it was one, we all agree that the No Child Left Behind has left many behind. Two, that paying for college, whether you're rich or poor, is a pipe dream, and that education begins in elementary school and below. So I think that those, if I've done anything wrong, absolutely left something out, then wave your hands incredibly, but I think I covered it. Okay, so by show, okay, so I guess we'll do it from the most important, and I think that it comes down to, to me, I think from what you guys are saying, it comes down to a vote between education, the economy, and the war, right? I think those are our top three topics. So I guess out of those then, okay, so we're now voting on which do you believe is the most important issue that candidates need to face as far as young people go. Now, before we do the show of hands, there are rooms full of 1 people, and then there are rooms full of Western Wayne 50 people. So do we? So does every person get an equal vote?
That's an interesting procedural question.
Or do we do the super delegates? I mean, help me out here, Steve.
Each school, yeah, each school.
Do we want to do electoral college style? Okay, so everybody's going to nominate someone in their group to vote upon the issue, or?
Each group gets to vote.
Right.
Majority determines what that represents.
Each school gets 1 vote, in other words.
Okay, each school gets one vote.
Each school gets one vote.
Each school gets
so you have to determine Western Wayne among all the people in that room. They have to agree, but they don't agree. So that's the problem.
Okay, so do you guys want to talk amongst yourselves just for a little bit? I'll give you about 30 seconds to sort of talk amongst yourselves in all the groups too. I mean, there are other classrooms there.
And then do you have a roll call of the schools?
Yeah, we'll do the roll call of the schools.
We'll just do a roll call of the schools, and they can give us their top priority. Maybe we could have each of the schools rank them 1, 2, 3.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we do, you guys, everyone? So what we'll do is each school will rank them. Okay, so we're talking about the environment, economy, the war, healthcare, and education. So let's all just take. I'm going to give you all, I don't know, a minute to rank them. And there's, yeah, you guys work with the schools that you're repping here, Colin and Christiana.
And then you can just kind of add up the rankings.
Or do you guys go to the same school? No. Okay, sorry. Okay, great. Oh no, Ian. Okay.
And then you could just add up the rankings, and the lowest number is the one.
I'm glad that there's a doctor in the house.
A doctor of procedure.
All right, we got about 30 more seconds for you guys to decide. Wait.
I got a question.
Okay, what's your question, Katie?
Can you repeat the 5 again?
Yes, the environment, the economy, the war, healthcare, and education.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Katie.
Rank them 1.
Now wait, the Constitution High School here, there's 2 of you guys, so you guys
have to collaborate.
I didn't know.
We agree.
Oh, okay.
You're already set?
You guys are all set.
Yes.
Okay, we all set? We all set? Okay, so I'm just going to go down the row.
How many schools are there?
Okay, so will you tally it?
I'll try. How many we have?
Okay, we've got the environment, we've got the economy.
All right.
We got this is live. The economy.
Okay. The war.
The war, healthcare, and education.
You got it.
Okay. All right. Let's start in the room with Abington High School. Andrew.
Yeah. Should I just read my number 1? Or?
Yeah.
1 through 5.
1 to 5.
Okay. Economy, war, healthcare, education, environment.
All right. Good. Next school.
Okay, next school. We're going to go to Baton Rouge.
I think they only respond to when they're called by the glasses.
Oh, yeah. Baton Rouge. You guys ready? Hi.
War. Hi.
Hi.
War. We'd like to. War. Economy.
Damn, we always lose that. What's up with that?
Education. Healthcare.
Give them numbers here. Let's try it again.
Okay, wait. Did we lose Baton Rouge again? Okay, wait. Baton Rouge, we're going to come back to you. There's something wrong with our connection with. Oh, wait. You're back. Wait. Hold
Okay.
on.
War is one.
Okay, let's start with one. Was war.
I'm sorry. We need more internets in.
Yeah.
So the first one is war.
War. Economy. Education. Healthcare and environment.
We got it.
All right. Okay, now we're going to go to Casadega Valley Central High School.
I don't know if it's faster, but mine was the exact same as Baton Rouge.
So that's war, economy, education, healthcare, and environment, right?
Yeah.
Got it.
Thanks, Tyler, for repping. All right, Constitution High School in the room. We've got two students here, and either one of you guys, Ian or
All right.
Christiana.
Our number 1 is education. Number 2 is war.
Number 3 is healthcare. Number 4 is environment. And number 5 is economy.
All right.
Okay, fantastic. All right, let's move on. Stephen Freeberg.
I have the economy, education, the war, healthcare, and the environment.
Okay. Conestoga High School in the room here.
We have education, the economy, healthcare, the war, and the environment.
I thought this was going to be easy at first because the war was coming in
It's
first.
like a bad tic-tac-toe game.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to Milford High School.
Okay, I have education is first, economy is second, the Iraq War is third, environment is fourth, and healthcare is fifth.
Okay.
Great, thank you, Julie. We're going to go on to Springfield High School.
We feel that the war is first.
Continue.
It's the war, economy, education, healthcare, and environment.
Okay.
We can't have any of the other 4 that we
Okay, guys. All right, West Philadelphia, Brianna.
I said education, economy, healthcare, war,
Hold
environment.
it.
Wait, hold on,
Economy.
slower.
Education, economy. 3 is
Healthcare,
healthcare,
war,
and economy, environment. Got it.
Okay. All right, Western Wayne. Did you guys come?
We have the economy, the war, education, healthcare, and the environment.
All right, awesome. Thanks, guys.
I'm running out of
Chestnut
space. How many
Chestnut
more we
Hill.
got?
Do you want another piece of paper?
No, I'm all right.
Yeah, I have education, environment, the war, healthcare, economy.
You got that?
I got it.
Okay, great. And last but not least, Katie.
Yeah. For me, I have the war, education, environment, the economy, and then healthcare.
Nice.
All right.
By the way, Katie, thank you so much for sort of being the catalyst for a lot of our discussion. I think we all, you took it well. All right, so do we have we're tallying up, while we're tallying up.
We just want to do them in terms of that
I think
way,
that
so-
I want to make a couple of announcements, and we'll save that for last. First of all, thank you guys all. I think this worked out fantastically. I think we all agree that you guys are the smartest, funnest. That's not a word, I know. You know, just incredible to sit here and hear about all this. I really, we're going to take this straight to the top. The president, right? Yeah, that's right. We're going to take this list to the president. Hopefully, we can show the DVD, get them really scared. I think that I wanted to thank the Annenberg Foundation again and for Scholastic for really getting the word out and helping us put this fantastic exchange together. You guys are all aware, of course, of the studentexchange.ning.com. That's our social website. So we've all kind of met, you know, and Katie and Steven and Tyler and Western Wayne. You know, we can all sort of, I don't know, be friends and stuff and continue this conversation online. I mean, this is what it's about. It's about starting the conversation here and then continuing it in our lives, in our classrooms. And then I'm supposed to plug something. Sue Chin at the end, plug the new Facebook application, comes out June 9th. What? Continue the conversation online. I'm very excited for that. So we have a new Facebook application coming out on June 9th. So please add that to your guys' already many applications, because this is the most important one. I don't know, it's just about war and stuff, you know, hey. And then I think that that's it for our exchange today. But before we go, I'm going to give you guys the tally.
I have tallied it, okay. And
or why don't you,
we need a drum
Dr.
roll.
Hogan,
and
give
it's
the tally.
And it's really pretty close, and so we don't want to say, you know, that because education beat out the war by 2 points. I mean, those obviously were the close priorities, but the ranking would be education, war, then the economy, and then those are all pretty close. And then the last two, healthcare and the environment, are distant third and fourth and fifth.
Fourth and fifth. Okay, so there's our final list, and we're going to post this list up on our website and the social site. And again, I hope that you guys continue this conversation. Thank you all for joining. Thank you so much, you guys, for taking the time. I hope you had fun. So thank you again. I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Bye, Katie.
Bye. Thank you.
Fantastic.
That was a fantastic.